In our lives, we all face moments that seem to strip everything away. And in those moments, we're left with just one single haunting question. It's a question that echoes when we're dealing with loss, or frustration, or pain. So let's explore a way to find meaning, especially when it feels like there's none to be found.
Why is this happening to me? Why this struggle? Why this pain? It's just one word, but it holds this profound, universal cry that we all feel when we're faced with suffering.
But what if the point isn't to find an answer that makes the suffering just disappear? What if suffering isn't some problem that needs to be solved, but a fundamental reality of being human, something we're actually meant to confront head-on? This is where we begin our look at 3 hard truths.
And that brings us to our very first hard truth. Now, this isn't meant to sound pessimistic or dark. It's just about establishing the ground on which we all stand. It is, simply, a given.
No matter how perfectly you plan your life, how much you achieve, or how carefully you try to build your world, suffering will find a way in. It's not a sign that you've failed. It's just an unavoidable, baked-in part of being alive.
And it's so important that we're clear on what we mean by suffering here. This isn't just about physical pain. It's that deep ache of disappointment, right? The sting of a loss or that modern anxiety of feeling like you're never quite enough. It's the gap between the life we expected and the one we're actually living.
Okay, so accepting that suffering is inevitable, that could feel like a dead end, couldn't it? But it's not. In fact, it's the very starting point for discovering our most profound power. And that brings us to the second truth, our final, untouchable freedom. Think about that. We can't always control the things that happen to us, that's the stimulus of life. But what we can always control is what happens next, inside of us. That little bit of space between the event and our response, well, that's where our true freedom lives. And you see this freedom playing out in our lives all the time. The stimulus, maybe it's a job loss, a big failure, or a betrayal, that's just the first half of the story. The second half, the response, is the part that we get to write. Do we choose despair, or do we choose reinvention? Do we surrender, or do we learn? That power is entirely ours. This whole idea is captured so powerfully by Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who lived through unimaginable circumstances. And he realized that even when everything else is stripped away from you, this one freedom always remains. The freedom to choose your attitude, to decide who you're going to be, no matter what you're facing. So, we've accepted suffering and we've found our freedom to respond. But freedom for what? What's the point? This leads us to the final and maybe the most important hard truth. It's all about where we direct that freedom. And this, right here, is such a radical shift in perspective. A meaningful life isn't necessarily a happy-go-lucky life that's free from pain. No, a meaningful life is one where our suffering actually has a purpose. It's a life where we're willing to endure hardship for a reason that is bigger than our own comfort.
And what's so powerful about this is how concrete and real this idea of purpose becomes. It's not some mystical secret you have to go out and discover. It's found in tangible things, in real commitments, in serving a cause, in loving another person, in taking on a responsibility. It's even found in the simple choice to show courage when things get really hard. So when we put these 3 truths together, we make this fundamental shift in the kind of question we ask of life. We stop asking, why is this happening to me? And we start asking, how will I respond? It's this simple, yet incredibly profound path. It starts with just accepting reality. You don't fight the fact that life is hard. Then you own your power, that space between what happens and what you do. And finally, you connect that response to a purpose, a why. As the philosopher Nietzsche once said, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how.
So this whole journey, these 3 hard truths, they don't actually lead to some final, neat answer. Instead, they lead us back to a personal question, one that only you can answer for yourself. So I want you to really think about it in your own life, with your own struggles. What is the purpose, the cause, the person you love, the responsibility you hold that gives you the strength to endure? What is your why?